It's time to go to war. It's time to realize the truth about our reality. Is that life doesn't occur in extreme. We weren't born out of pure light. We weren't born out of pure darkness. Literally, the temperature of life is where hot and cold meet each other. That the nature of life, that being born, is a very violent act. And the nature of the world and the reality that we are born into is peaceful and violent. It's not ever one or the other. And I think the problem with my perception most of my life was the fact that I'd only seek good things. And I'd only want to portray good things to others and myself. And I want to hide what I considered dark or evil. That I was a being of light, and I would work towards the light, move towards it. When that's only half the truth. I'm a being of darkness as well. And it's an idea, most people have this idea of doing life-affirming things all the time, always helping others, but most of the lessons in my life where I grew as a person and matured are for some really things that I wouldn't consider good, some really horrible things that happened to me. Made the most change in my life for the better. And I'll put it like this, there wasn't ever a compliment anyone gave me that impacted me as much as when somebody said something awful about me that was true. True matters more to me than good. But even that, because even false matters more to me. Well, I guess that false and true matter just as much as each other, because there's also times when somebody was absolutely wrong about me, but the moment still impacted me. I guess it's the idea of accepting the really huge irony of life, that it's only through horrific, awful things, chaotic, crazy things of life, that we ever understand what good and peaceful and kind things are. I know what I want to talk about, that I no longer want to seek a peaceful, hidden, away from the world life like I did for most of my life. I'm 47 now, and I just now realize that it's time that I go to war. However you want to put it, war against God, war against good, war against evil, war against myself. It's time to go to war, and it's time for everyone that has happened upon this, that you also go to war. Because that's where we ascend this world. That's where we ascend this body. It's a crazy thing, but it's a really crazy thing, because everything about the power and divinity inside of us, or the power we have that we don't understand really what we can do yet. Because unlike speaking and walking, we were taught that we would be able to do those things if we worked at them. Because I tell you the truth, speaking and walking feels impossible for an infant. There's a world you come into where everything is foreign, confusing, and nobody understands you. And it's a desperate attempt to connect that fuels the desire to speak and the desire to be understood. Those dark things of loneliness are what push us to talk to each other, to develop a language. And the ability to get to each other is what pushes us to walk. All these powers and abilities we develop would seem miraculous to something that can't move at all, or can't communicate at all. But the question I have for all of you is that who told you that was the end of it? Who said that's the only things you could do? It seems like the things that we think we can do are only because of what we've done. And give me a second, because I don't have a script for this. I don't want it to be a scripted thing where I've thought it out and I'm making points left and right. I want it to be more like a conversation, so I do have this kind of light activation frequency thing playing on in the background, right? And that's because energy does move in frequencies and rhythms and patterns, and sound is in frequencies and energies in frequencies, and they do move through, and frequencies do move through sound. I mean, that's how radios work, right? So everything that is a healing or a destructive type of energy also moves through these same frequencies. And there is a grid, and I could get very technical about sacred geometry and the grid that Tesla stumbled upon. And actually, like, the people that have brought the most to our world, like, scientifically, never made it up. They were just advocating ancient kinds of ideas that they saw in the world. Like Tesla put his power grid right on where he thought was, he had the scientific reasons for it. Ginger, come on, not now, like I'm doing something more important. Like, she doesn't know. She's a cat. She thinks it's time for her to get attention. She doesn't know we're doing a video. It's like it's like us a little bit. Like, all these great things are happening around us, and like, it's like if you put your cell phone in front of your cat would just walk over it and never know that it's full of all this information and all these things you can know and all these ways to connect to the world. But your cat's never going to experience any of that. Thinking a cat can love you and things like that, no, not really, not on the same level as you love somebody, because they don't have that type of intelligence or consciousness, and it's not really fair to put that on them. Well, most cat owners don't. They'll make excuses to why their cat does cat things, and like, the cat scratches them or bites them, it's not because they made a choice, it's because they're just an animal. But then when it's time for their feelings to be met, substituting that cat's love for the love of a person, like, then it's like, oh, well, then they can meet that standard. Other ways they get passes for being an animal, but never mind. I don't know why I'm going off tangent. I guess people that love their animals so much that they sacrifice relations with people for them, I kind of feel sad for them. I guess that's why I'm talking about that. But yeah, it doesn't have much to do with this war that we all need to be part of. It's because it's more true. Like, I masturbate and fall to those, like, kind of like bestial kinds of desires and base type of nature things, and I'd be so ashamed of myself. I'd be so disgusted with myself. And I think about, like, if I looked at porn or something, like, the young women that would be in the porn and, like, what was happening in their lives, and even the guys that were kind of pushing them to be in the porn, or if it's women, or what, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to make something about the gender. Just like the people in this that made this kind of pornographic tape, like, what they sacrificed about themselves to do that. And maybe it was for money, maybe it was for love. Because a lot of these people are with the person that they're putting in the pornography, like, they have a relationship with them that's supposed to be a loving one. Now, I guess it boils down to, a lot of people see love as take, when it's give and take. But I guess it's only going to be balanced if it's give and take at the same time. It can't be take, then give. It's going to feel like extremes all the time. And I guess life works like that sometimes, where there's a bad period, but you have to realize that there's a good period coming after that. Like, nothing ever stays in an extreme. Why? So why do we have to go to war with God now? Well, I'm talking about God as a tradition, as something of a story now, like what churches use to build communities, to build cults, just this kind of inclusive kind of control, like offering love in a community for obedience and service. And it's very much like Sarkos, the demiurge, the 13th emanation of the one true God. This being, which is commonly known as the Creator God, the Judeo-Christian God that created us, was a very incomplete and lacking being, because he wasn't a whole being. He was very lonely, and he desired to be worshipped and served. But the truth is, where we all come from, the divinity, the light source, the energy we all come from, is not lacking like that. It's not just a piece of the puzzle. It needs to create companions, and it needs to create beings to serve it. It's a very incomplete, selfish type of being. And that comes from the Mother God. Whenever she, so when you, how this Judeo-Christian God became, this God that everybody recognized in this world because it's such a big religion, and the Romans and their empire spread this religion. And, I think how funny it is that Christians act like they're the ones being persecuted when they've been on the side of the persecutors most of history. It wasn't the Jewish people proclaiming Jesus. It was the Roman occupationers. It wasn't the Jewish people dragging bishops through the streets. It was Constantine. It was Roman officials who very well knew that Christianity was a level of control. And it still is. It very much still is, because it very much seeks to keep that, to be like an offshoot of the Creator God. Do you know that, this is the crazy thing about this demiurge or Creator God, that our bodies, the illusion that we're separate from each other and we don't have the same divine substance with us, and that we're not all part of this God, is confused because we were put in separate bodies. And he did this as a prison, like to trap this divinity in us. Like he did this, it's such an ugly thing to do. You know, like, this sad little God, you know, this, and it's not his fault. It's his nature to be lonely. It's his nature to want, to desire to be worshipped and to be loved. You know, it's not his fault because he was made that way. He was made incomplete because, and this is where the story of Lucifer comes from, really, kind of like with this mother kind of God being named Sophia, who was one of the first emanations of the one true light source or God. She's one of the first ones, and she would be the mother of this created God, right? And her father was actually the Elohim that Israel had a custom of also having in their historical record of gods they worship. Elohim and Jehovah, here's the crazy part, they're not the same gods. They're different types of older gods. And there was not just one of them. They took almost 2 or 3 different gods, maybe 3 probably. It's Elohim, there's Jehovah, they're different, and they just said they're different aspects of the same God, but they're actually, no, they were different gods to start with. They took care of different parts of reality. But they actually come from the older gods, which were was it Assyrian or Sumerian? I think it's Sumerian. I do think it's Sumerian gods, right? I think it's here, let me look at it real quick. So yeah, they come from the Mesopotamian gods who are often grouped in a trinity, because there was the father god who is Anu, and that's where you get the word Anunnaki, which were like descendants of Anu, right? So the Anunnaki, Anu, Enlil, and Ea, and some people actually put not Ea in there, which is a god of water or like the ocean and things like that, but Enki. But you know, some of the Babylonian texts have Enki, his son, inheriting the power of Anu, and it gets very complicated. And what you'll find is like the older mythologies like Norse and Greek have these stories rewritten, and the same thing's happening in them. And then like, the more you read about it, the more you'll see that Jesus and the story of Judaism are all are taken from older stories. Jesus is kind of a newer age amalgamation story of all of them. But you know, like the god of wisdom, right? Odin. So, you know, like, I mean, a very specific story, like of Odin hanging himself on Yggdrasil, which is the world tree, the tree of the world, hanging himself on a tree, right? What does that sound like to you? You know, not only hanging himself on a tree, but killing himself with a spear wound on the side. Now, this is added, obviously, in the Christian text to be a random Roman soldier just poking his side for God knows what reason, because he'd be a corpse and that would spread disease, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea to pierce his side when he's dying anyway. But I'm sure Christians have come up with a reason for that, made up, I'm sure. But really, it's supposed to mirror Odin, you know, like, because that's an older story. Odin hung himself on the world tree, and he was in the world of the dead until they kicked him out. So there's kind of a similar story there. There's also, like, even in the same mythology, in Norse mythology, the story of Balder, the golden boy, who, when Balder died, the world screamed out in pain and had earthquakes and thunderstorms and just went nuts the same way described when Jesus died, you know. And, you know, there's stories that Christians added about the miracles that Jesus did that are just strangely not in line with Christian morals or ideals, like turning water into wine. Like, I don't know if it's like a Christian ideal to everybody get their drink on at a wedding, or, you know, why that was an important miracle to do there. Because God forbid that, you know, not enough people get drunk at a wedding, you know, or not enough people get their buzz on at a wedding. You know, that's got to be like something that's important to God, right? You got to use your godlike power to make more alcohol. Yeah. Any Christians, like, explain that one in the comments, and what do you think Jesus was trying to accomplish there with that miracle of, I believe it's the wedding in Cana. You know, like, what was he trying to teach with that one? Because I can see, like, okay, you know, the Gospels were written in Greek, right? And, you know, like, there's maybe Jesus spoke in Aramaic, maybe, we don't know, but like we know for sure that Rome had conquered the province. I mean, all those were provinces of Rome at that point, provinces of that empire. So mostly the educated spoke Greek, and the Gospels, they're written in Greek, you know, and And Paul, probably the most famous apostle, because probably the most writing was his, had a very philosophical education, a very with Plato and with the Greek philosophies. Oh man, there's so much we can get into about that. But just suffice it to say that some of Jesus' miracles do mirror Greek gods. That they would want to show that, hey, Jesus is a lot like Poseidon, who is god of the seas and god of the ocean. And obviously could walk on water, because he was god of that, And then, a god of drunkenness and leisure, and which Dionysus came to be. Originally in older Greece, he was god of sea and madness, and he was king of the underworld, and Hades replaced him, and Hades is kind of a newer god, and originally I think Persephone was with him, but Persephone is kind of the older god. What's just crazy, because everybody knows the rape of Persephone story and things like that, which actually I don't think people many know it was not Hades who raped Persephone, it was Zeus. And we've been talking for 22 minutes now, and I feel like, wow, I feel like we're just getting started. So, but I'm gonna have to make this almost maybe 2 videos, because I feel like we're just getting started here. It's gonna take a long time. But let's start with that idea that you were created to serve. And when you think about it, it doesn't take that much for beings to be that more far advanced technological-wise to where we would think they were close to gods. Because the same thing happened in the New World, where kind of Spaniards came to America and they were 6 feet tall or such. And the natives here in what was not America yet thought that they were gods. They thought, what, these tall fucking beings that command horses. Excuse my language. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't take that much. Think about, if beings don't understand AI technology, we go to a world where they have space travel, they have all of that, but not AI technology, and we're just able to talk to Siri and tell her to do things, and they have no concept of that. Or we just, have chips in our hands, and we're able to connect to the internet through something in our hand or something, or a chip in our brain, or able to control technology like that. What does that look like to somebody that doesn't understand that technology? It looks like we're just raising our hand and making things happen. Would it be so far if that story went on to be oh, this being was close to God? It doesn't take that much, and I don't think we're originally from this world. I honestly don't. It seems like the animals and life from this world are born with everything they need to survive in it. They have fur for the cold. They have the food that they live on is right around them. They don't have to work the soil or build houses or make the atmosphere. It seems like we come from a much gentler climate and a much gentler gravity, where we lived a lot longer. And this kind of poisonous, nutrient dense, but also very poisonous planet, was much more oxygen rich before a certain time. And I think there are scientific theories about when the dinosaurs here, the world was much more oxygen rich. And it could sustain these big kinds of massive beings, which it can't anymore. And we still have, I don't know if blue whales are extinct yet, or they're going extinct, but those are massive beings. But they can only be in the ocean now, which is still kind of nutrient dense, but not as nutrient dense as our atmosphere was. So yeah, people lived longer because the world was different, and we didn't poison ourselves in so many ways and speed up that degradation. But that also fits what society needs to progress. It's people living shorter lives but contributing more. Hey, gender, yeah, okay. I'm doing a video right now, okay? Now you're gonna come back. Okay. Me looking at you doesn't mean come over here. You don't care. You just don't care. All right. You need to get your attention no matter what it means for everybody else. All right. By the way, I love this cat, but it's not my cat. It's my girlfriend's cat. And I'm too good to have cats because I'm too good because I don't substitute human love for animal. And shut up, Lisa. I don't really judge that harshly. Whatever. We all need to find affection where we can find it. Because we're kind of incomplete beings the way we are too. There is a sense that we were separated also as male and females, not just in bodies by ourselves, but also that being that was perfect was both male and female, and we're one or the other. You never know what you've lost. You never know what you forgot. And there's so much knowledge that we've lost as humans. There's so much technology, there's so much art, there's so much beauty, but also so much horror that we've lost. I think the point is that I want to move more towards balance and less towards the good. I want to open myself up to accepting how dark and evil I am at times. And I think that's where ascension for me lies. That's where growing as a person for me lies. It lies in the balance. It lies in the conflict. And that's why we have to go to war. And have to fight this ignorance, this malaise that people have about life, that they think things are worse than they used to be. No, that's bull. People didn't talk about things as much, and they weren't connected like the internet connects us. You couldn't like have an idea and then find somebody in India and talk to them within a couple of minutes like you can now. You just search like community for this, and you could find one that's more connected than any time we've been in the world. And we might be on our way to creating the first God from the void or God behind the wall. Like, I really don't think our bodies are kind of an advanced technology that we can't do yet. So the first kinds of consciousness are going to come from this digital source. And I think that's probably how it goes, because like creation doesn't go from more complex to more simple things. It goes the other way around. It goes from more simple things to complex things. So you can't have something like this body that regenerates and heals itself and then have to be in this consciousness and have to say that's an older technology than computers. When like their kind of logic is more rudimentary. I mean, you can understand that through their first language, which was binary, so. Anyway, it's been 30 minutes of me talking now, and I don't know if I'm going to cut a lot of it out for the video. I hope I do, because who wants to hear me talk for 30 minutes? Like, there's some things that are good in there, but I'll make more videos, and we'll talk more. But I don't think I ever wanted to script this out. I just think we'll just talk. We'll just open a dialogue. We'll just grow. We'll just go. Let's go to war.